Okay, GBA, we are live. We are recording. And for anybody watching at home, there's a new number for tonight. Please dial that number when you would like to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals, a meeting for November 29th, 2022. We'll start off. We have one canceled public hearing this evening, and that is Chris Robbins at 257 Fairview Avenue in Montauk. That's Suffolk Tax Map number 300-19-7-44.19. So with that canceled hearing, we have a request to, we have a couple of administrative applications before us this evening. We're going to handle them now so that we can not let Tyler Borsak leave after those. So Tyler, I'll read the first one in. The first administrative application is Stephen and Jane Cantor at 10 Bayberry Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-176-1-8. And the description is to construct a 1,033 square foot of first and second story additions with approximately 374 square feet of additional decking and an upgraded sanitary system within jurisdiction of freshwater wetlands and dune vegetation. Tyler?
Sure. So this property is
Tyler,
on.
you swear, raise your right hand.
Oh, sure.
You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So this property is on the east side of Bayberry Lane. It's in Beach Hampton area, just north of Central Avenue. Existing residence is around 1,300 square feet. They are adding mostly first-story additions on the north side of the house, a two-story addition on the southeast side, and then a partial two-story, mostly first-story on the southwest side of the residence. Decking on the second story here, and then they're also going to be upgrading the sanitary system. Additional to that, before the current owners purchased the property, a lot of clearing took place on the property, and then there's a little bit of lawn around the existing swimming pool. They're going to be getting rid of the lawn and revegetating the property with beach grass in order to sort of reestablish that vegetation. So total GFA at the end of the day will be around 2,777 square feet. And that's about it.
Any questions for Tyler? On this board member?
Was this a required sanitary upgrade or?
No.
They
voluntary.
came to us with it. I'm not sure if it's required. It might be because of the GFA increase. It's pretty close to 50%. So it may be that it's required. I'm not 100% certain if it's required or not. I didn't ask for the information because they were offering it.
All right, okay.
It's several items, and you're comfortable with all of these, and obviously you're presenting it as an administrative.
Right. We're comfortable with it. The 150-foot jurisdictional line is from the wetlands. There is right through the middle of the house. So part of it's in jurisdiction of the wetlands, and part of it's out. The rest of it would be for dune vegetation and dune land habitat. But again, most of that's been cleared on the property, so they'll be reestablishing.
Most of that's being restored.
Right.
All right, everybody okay with this?
I mean, it sounds like an improvement.
Right.
With the IA system and the re-veg.
Barry?
How close to the GFA? I'm sorry.
The GFA maximums, I'd have to do a little math.
All right, I guess I'm okay with it. Sure.
Let's see. So GFA, yeah, they'd be coming right up to their maximum pretty much. 2,800 would be their maximum.
Okay.
Okay.
So, make a motion?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you need it? Here you go. You can have
So
this.
sorry.
You can have that. I don't need it.
I make a motion in the matter of Stephen and Jane Cantor at 10 Bayberry Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-176-01-8 to permit the matter to go administratively.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Next administrative application we have is Daniel Borum at 14 Ocean View Terrace, Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-49-6-24. And the description is to allow an existing, give me a sec. Got it. I have it.
Hot tub.
To allow an existing 49 square foot of hot tub to remain 18.2 feet from the side yard lot line where a 20-foot setback is required.
This is a variance without a hearing, potentially.
Sorry, it's a variance with that.
Yeah, so the board will still have to make a determination as they normally would. There just won't be a public hearing. So, you know, essentially, it'll still need to meet the variance standards. This is a hot tub, and it's kind of hard to see. It's located here on the property. I don't know if you can see that. 18.2 feet from the side yard lot line, 20 feet is required. Meets all the conditions that need to be met in order to have a variance without a hearing. They consider it a hot tub, but it just meets the definition of a swimming pool, which is why it needs to meet a double setback. Hot tub has to be 6 feet or less. I think this is like 7 or 8 feet. So it just meets it's just over what would be a hot tub.
So the variance request is 1 foot 8 inches?
Right, 1.8 feet.
1.8, 1.8.
1.8, yeah.
Anybody have any questions for this? I mean, again, this is a variance without a hearing, which we don't get a lot of these.
They're pretty rare.
So,
Yeah, looking
I think
for
we
what
wanna be-
Tyler said, I don't know.
What's that?
I think I'm okay with this going thing.
I think, you know, one of the things that it is a de minimis request
Mhm.
and it is a pool, which, I mean, a hot tub
It's a hot tub.
barely fits the definition of a pool.
Yeah.
So, if you're okay with this,
I'm okay with it. I think you're right that this comes in front of us rarely, so we're going to be careful about these kinds of approvals, but this one does seem to fit the criteria that will allow it, so I'm good with it.
thank you. Somebody from Montauk want to make a motion?
So is the motion to make it administrative or to approve the variance?
Approve.
You would be approving it to move forward, and then later on, you'll make an actual determination. After the hearing, after the notice period is over, then you'll have to make a normal determination like you normally would.
It's called for a motion at all. at this
Okay,
point.
so it calls for a motion for
To
the variance.
allow it to move forward.
to allow move forward without a hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for Daniel Borum at 14 Ocean View Terrace, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-049-06-24, make a motion to allow this application to move forward without a hearing.
I'll second it.
Concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Next, we have Patricia Romanzi at 199 3 Mile Harbor Hog Creek Highway in Springs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-77-5-7. The description is to replace existing windows and doors, some in new locations with interior renovations, and to construct a relocated generator within jurisdiction of tidal wetlands.
So this is one of those long skinny lots out on 3 Mile Harbor. Replacing windows and doors around the house. Not all of them are in place in kind, so it requires a natural resources special permit. No significant changes to the walls from what I can tell based on the building plans, but it does require the natural resource special permit. In addition to that is a generator located 135.2 feet from the freshwater wetlands and out of jurisdiction from the bluff crest. So fairly minor project overall.
Generator is new, right? The
Yes,
generator is new.
generator will be new, yeah.
It says relocated generator.
Oh, I don't remember where the original location was.
Where's the new location,
The
Tyler?
location's down here.
Okay, again, it's beyond jurisdiction or?
It's within jurisdiction of the tidal wetlands. It's not within jurisdiction of the bluff crest. It's over 100 feet from the bluff crest, but it's within 150 from tidal wetlands.
By like 12 feet.
By 14.8 feet.
And where are they in regards to their clearing? And is there a buffer at, yeah, it looks like there is a buffer.
Their existing clearing is 17,322 and they're allowed 1862.
What is that green hatched area by?
That's all existing vegetation. That's the road down here. water would be on this side.
Oh,
This is vegetated along here. They don't have much of a buffer in there though.
can we request a buffer?
I don't see much of a nexus between the two. They're not doing a lot of improvements. That's why I didn't bring it up to them before bringing it to you.
We don't know if this is going to be closer than it was before.
Well, it won't be, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. It may be within now and they're moving it out.
There must be a
It's up here now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up here now. So they're
Where
moving
is it?
it.
It's up there.
slightly
So they're moving
further
a little
away.
farther away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm okay with this. I like the chance to try to increase buffers whenever we can, but I guess there is not, like Tyler said, there's no nexus for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. There's not a lot going on for this one to try and mitigate.
Is this also the case where there is not actually a conforming location for the generator?
Well, they could certainly potentially move it further back on the property. I don't know what that does to the engineering of it, moving it that far away from the house. I don't know.
Mhm.
Okay. Then I'm
Okay.
okay with it.
I'm okay with it too. I'll make a motion. In the case of Patricia Ramonzi at 199 3 Mile Harbor, Hog Creek Highway Springs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-77-5-7, to allow the application to proceed administratively.
Well, second.
Concur.
I'll concur.
Thank you. Our next and final administrative application is Donna Leonard at 93 Girard Drive in Springs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-41-2-7.1, and that is to replace in place an existing approximately 800 square foot first floor deck and install geothermal wells.
So the board may remember this. This was in front of you a couple weeks ago. And the board had some additional questions that the applicants then supplied additional information for. Roy had asked what the stop work order was for, and that was for the deck on the water side of the property. They had started replacing it without a building permit, so they got a stop work order. And that's what they're asking for, is to replace this in place in kind. And then there were some questions about the geothermal well and going down into groundwater and how that would affect that. And they essentially said in their letter to the board that it doesn't really have any impact. It's a closed loop system, so it doesn't interact with the groundwater. And the fact that it goes into groundwater, they said, is really a non-issue, but it could help in that it's more thermal regulated than just ground would be. They're going to go pretty deep either way, but it's a closed loop system, so it shouldn't be interacting with the groundwater at all. Essentially, they're trying to maintain 55 degrees. So that was the questions that the board had at the time. So it's an in-place replacement of the east side decking and then installation of new geothermal wells on the street side of the property.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
I don't have any questions either. So I can make a motion. In the case of the Donna Leonard at 93 Girard Drive in Springs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-41-2-7.1, to allow the application to proceed administratively.
Concur.
I'll concur.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to our first scheduled public hearing. And the applicant is Rose Melindretz at 48 Treasure Island Drive in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-175-5-20. The size and location is 4,000 square foot total. 48 Treasure Island Drive in Beach Hampton, Block 5, Lots 7 and 8, map number 1319 in Amagansett. The description is to allow approximately 32 square foot shed and concrete pad to remain within side yard lot lines setbacks and outside of the town's pyramid regulations, and to allow the existing clearing on the parcel to remain with the installation of gravel areas, paver, walkways, and fencing on a parcel of land containing dunes and dune vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 3 variances are required for this application. 2 variances of 6.9 feet and 7 feet are required from 255-1110 of the town code to allow the shed to remain 1.1 feet and concrete to remain 1 foot from the northern side yard lot line where 8-foot setbacks are required. One variance of 6.8 feet is required from 255-1142D of the town code to allow the shed to remain 6.8 feet outside of the town's pyramid regulations and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B Residence 8E flood zone, elevation 10 of the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We do have a proper affidavit of service. The certified mailing and the posting both occurred on November 18th, 2022, 10 days prior to today's public hearing. In addition, one party did not receive notice, but I do have a signed letter dated today from that individual that they are waiving their notice requirements pursuant to the town of East Hampton code.
Thank you. Joan, is this yours?
Yep. Tyler has the photos. This is the entranceway to the house, and you see to the right, there's a gravelled area that serves as the parking area. Next. Oh, and it's posted on both sides of the entrance to the house. Next. That's looking towards the ocean. Next. And that's looking towards Montauk Highway. Next. This is going in through the entranceway. Next. There's a little bit of grass in the front, not much beach vegetation, and you can see decking coming off the house. Next. That's to the left as you're entering the house. And there's, as you can see, there's decking almost right up to the fence. Next. That's decking in front of the house and a sitting area. Next. That's the house. Next. There's, as you go from the front where you saw some grass, there's some grass running along the side of the right side of the house towards the shed. The shed's in the background. Next. Now I've turned the corner and I'm past the shed, and that's a little sitting area on the right, which is a fire pit, and to the left is a outdoor shower. Next. Now I'm at the fire pit looking towards the shed and the outdoor shower. Next. This is more the back of the house. Next. That's on the other side of opposite the fire pit is a bricked in area with railroad ties surrounding it and a table and a barbecue. Next. And now I'm walking around the house, and that's the decking that I pointed out at the beginning with the fence running next to it. Next. It's another picture of the table and the bricked over walkway. Next. Now I'm walking out. Next. This is a lot of more decking, which could be vegetated. I mean, it didn't really look like a sitting area or anything. Next. And that's leaving the house. Next. That's it. That's the parking area and my very unattractive car.
Thank you, Denise. I'm sorry. Who, Denise? I'm sorry. Joan. Joan, my bad. I was thinking Denise earlier. Question, the deck though that you mentioned, that's allowed, right? Or is that part of the C of O? I mean, that's not part of this application, right?
This is the CO
It's on the CFO?
that you're talking about?
Yeah,
That's the CO.
okay, thank you.
I was just responding to the TAM's comment that there's not a lot of vegetation. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
100% clear.
Yes,
Yes, hi, I'm Rose Malandretis.
introduce yourself and your address.
Yes, my name is Rose Malandretis, and I was at 48 Treasure Island Drive.
Are you attorney?
No,
Will you raise your right hand? You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
I
truth.
do.
Thank you. You proceed.
Yes, so the shed was, we purchased the house 14 years ago, and the shed is something, because it's a small parcel, it's 0.09 of an acre, so it's the smallest house on the street. And so the shed, because there's no storage, it's next to our neighbors, the garbage is on their other side. So there's just no storage space anywhere in the house. So that's why we wanted to allow the shed space on the property. And because of the way it's structured, there's no space left to put anything because of the situation, the way the house is situated. And we planted seagrass in the back because, as you can see on the back border, it's very invasive bamboo. So we wanted to contain that as much as possible because it's just grows like a weed. So we planted a lot of seagrass. We're all about the environment and keeping the dunes intact. So we're trying to plant as much as we can, but because it's such a narrow parcel, we had seagrass all along the deck area on the side entryway, and it just didn't do it very well. So, but we want to preserve it as much as possible because we love our small little piece of Amagansett.
Did you address a clearing? You want to address a clearing issue?
It was when we purchased the house, it was just bamboo. It was invasive bamboo. So we just, it's a small area of about less than 10 by 10 in that corner. And it was just overgrown bamboo. So that's where we added some seagrass in between the brickwork and the sitting area. Because it was bamboo basically that we cleared out.
But the notice is to allow existing clearing with gravel.
Yeah, we put little stones on top where we cleared the gravel,
Okay.
where we cleared the bamboo.
Okay, you understand that this is a dune land area, right? So the reason one of these before us is we're here to preserve dune land, not to take dune land away.
Yeah, but it was only bamboo. It was basically mud. It was a small area, less than, like I said, like 5 by 8. And all of it was mud and then bamboo, just a couple pieces of, like, the bamboo was just in the corner. So and we planted seagrass, and we want to plant something that's more in keeping with the dune environment, but it was just it was all bamboo in the back, and you could see in the back, it's still all bamboo.
Yeah, I saw the bamboo.
Yeah.
I didn't comment on it. It wasn't, is it your neighbor's bamboo or is it all yours or?
It's on the neighbor side, and they planted the tall evergreens, but the bamboo is everywhere.
Interspersed,
Yeah.
So you're still fighting the bamboo on your property, on your property line, so it's
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's,
we're trying.
So the area that you took out, some bamboo and some other vegetation, you said was mud, then you brought in gravel and put it on top of that mud. Is that correct?
We put topsoil or sand, and then gravel on top.
One of the things you said was you'd like to keep as natural an environment as possible. So a natural environment is not bringing gravel back in on top of that. It would be planting something that would be indigenous to the site. When you consider that?
Yeah, we have grasses on the side, but it's a very small area. So we have we planted seagrasses all along and on the back, but nothing would grow at that area. So we brought in some other plants that, but it was mostly grasses that they recommended that would be okay in that area because it's sand. And then bamboo. So it's hard to plant anything because the bamboo roots are still there. We didn't get them out. I mean, if you could still see them coming out. So the bamboo is
The technical analysis is saying that according to the 2008 certificate of occupancy, the parcel had approximately 1,700 square foot of beach vegetation, which has since been cleared. So what we're going to be looking for is a replanting of that at least 1,700 square feet back to beach vegetation.
But when we purchased the house, it was
What
all
year did you purchase it?
2008. I mean, we didn't change anything. It was the layout, because I mean, there's not much land. It's the house takes up most of the property. And as you, right, I mean, Joan, if you can attest to it, because it's hard. But when you see the property, it's very small. And there is just a border of where the fence is around the house. There's not much room for vegetation. It's a very small parcel, 0.09 of an acre.
I understand.
So it's on our neighbor's side, there's bamboo. On that side, there's bamboo. So when you dig, I mean, in our garden, there's still bamboo sprouting out everywhere. So it's very hard to plant anything else when the roots are still there, because we didn't touch anything else on the property. It was all the vegetation was as is. If anything, we planted more and more natural vegetation and grasses. That's what we want to preserve, that as much as possible.
In terms of the shed,
Yeah.
that's a substantial variance. And it's like 100% variance request, which is extremely substantial. And the town code or zoning board has to look at variance standards into why we would allow a substantial variance to exist. Can you address that for us?
Sure. Again, we didn't know, like, as soon as we realized we needed a variance, because we did not know, again, that was built when we first purchased that property. And so we didn't know we needed a variance. Otherwise, as soon as we realized that, we went into action. We got a new survey done. We addressed it with our neighbors, because our neighbors knew we were building it when it happened. And their garbage is right behind it. So they were okay with it. Because there's no storage in the house or anywhere else for anything, because it's such a small parcel. So that's basically our basement, and where we keep everything. So again, once we realized we needed a variance, we had the survey redone. Because there's no way we can set back from the house because it's such a narrow parcel.
Well, can I ask it a different way? There's a lot of decking. Is it possible, like by the brick patio, there's some dirt and then there's a pretty substantial deck. I mean, is that deck used a lot?
Yeah, that's what was there originally. And that's what basically is the foundation. That's what was there originally. So we kept what was originally there.
Well, I guess we're trying to figure out how to get back to what was it, 1,700 square feet of vegetation?
Yeah. But when we purchased the house, the decking was as is. We, that's the way so we didn't want to change anything because we knew what a process that would be. And it's just functional because we have 2 kids and a dog. So, it's not a big enough yard for anything other than that, really.
As far as the shed, though, it is, as the chair has said, it's a huge variance, and it does seem like there are some other locations, small as the property may be.
Well, we looked at,
there's a concrete right across from the shed up against the house.
Yeah, but that area is, we looked at that, and it's because it's very close to the house. And again, the neighbor's garbage is on the other side. So, and it's not very sunny there because there's a huge tree above. So, that was all, there was nothing there as far as vegetation goes beforehand there, because the huge tree doesn't allow anything to grow underneath.
Well, is it possible to remove some of the grass and put in beach grass?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we could do that. We had beach grass in the front, but the deers ate it, and then we had the fence, and that's helped significantly.
No, deer.
But the deer, we've had
Yeah.
we've went through a lot of vegetation and plantings on the property. It meant a big expense, and some took, some didn't, but we're all about plantings. We want to preserve it. Every time someone purchases a house on our street, it gets knocked down and a bigger monstrosity comes up. And, we have our tiny parcel. And so we want to preserve it and do as much as we can to maintain it. But there's not much space for that.
I still have to return to the shed, though, because the shed is an issue for us. We, not in the too distant past here, had a very similar situation with a shed on a property line. There's the pyramid variance here, which is significant, and that's something we take pretty seriously,
Sure.
pyramid, because the neighbor inherits that in perpetuity, right? So
Yes.
if we approve it, it means it's going to be there, not just for you and your neighbor, but the next set of people who are on that property. So we take pyramid variances very seriously, and we're always looking for, as was mentioned by Member Berger, is there another spot on this lot that this shed could be wheeled over and put in a place where we would not have to be looking for such a significant pyramid variance in particular? Not to mention the side lot setback, which was mentioned by the chair, is basically 100%.
Yeah, again, we looked at that with the engineer, the surveyor even looked around to see if we can move it somewhere, but because it's such a narrow space, there wasn't a place where we could put it that against the house, it wouldn't be good for the house. So, considering the location, that was the best location based on, the feedback we got from people we've asked. So I'm not a contractor or architect, but, as far as where it was placed, for us, we wanted to be considerate with our neighbors, and that was the most important. And they were fine with it because they have a wooden structure that houses all their garbage and recycling, and right on the other side of it. So it's not something that, interferes with them.
Unfortunately, when you have such a small lot, it's confined in the amount of changes you can make.
Well,
And so that
exactly.
in a situation like this, although we're sympathetic to it, we have to remember what is the zoning here and what are we asked to do and try to enforce. So when it's been brought up by Member McGivern, are there other areas that you could look at, analyze your property and say, here's a place where we might be able to do some revegetation to help with this, with our approach and what we're asking for here tonight? I think that's something you should consider. And then secondly, the shed is going to be a sticking point because the shed has two problems. It's on the property line and it's a significant pyramid variance. Now, we understand clearly from your survey just what your problems are. Problems are not that easily solved, but I think you have to think about these things when we're making decisions. We have to consider what we're asking the other board members to consider and what we think is the best thing for the town long term when we make these decisions. It's difficult.
Yeah, I understand.
It's difficult for us as well.
I appreciate your consideration because we love our house. We love the land.
It's very sweet.
I know we love every inch of it. And that's why it's such a small lot that we see what goes up next door, and I hold my breath because this next door, it's going to overshadow us. And
Are you aware there's a public comment letter in the file that came to us from Thomas Doyle at 52 Treasure Island Drive opposing the application?
No.
So I think you can pull that up on the public files if you want, and you can take a look at it. But he's referring to a 2004 determination by the zoning board that denied a south side deck that is apparently there or been built.
That was before we owned the property.
It still doesn't matter if.
I didn't know that even.
Yeah,
because
so
we're very friendly with them. But I didn't know that was on the record. Yeah.
So we're going to probably ask the planning department tonight too if they're aware of that and maybe how to handle that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anybody have any
Yeah,
questions? Any other questions?
No, I mean, you bought a very small property, you get a 2-foot benefit out of a 4/10 rule, but it's still the shed, it's right there and it's very, very high.
I mean, it could be that your neighbors have built their shed illegally. But they're not in front of us.
I know. That's what's tricky because they, I mean, we're talking about our property, but it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from planning because there was 1,700 square feet of beach vegetation the same year you bought the house. And
I
now
can
there's-
assure, I have pictures from when we bought it and, it was decking all around and we're like, oh, great, this will be easy to take care of.
The decking on the south side, which
All
the
of it.
chair just brought up.
Yeah. All of it. It was as you saw it completely. We didn't touch or change anything. And the brick patio, everything was intact. And there was grass in the front as well with Montauk daisies, which the deer then devoured. And we planted grasses and the junipers were there. We planted grasses in between the junipers. And that's all the space there was really for planting. And in the back by the outdoor shower, we planted seagrasses as well. So on any corner we could, we planted grasses. And all along the all along the border of the deck, in between the junipers, we had grasses as well. The pine needles fall over them and hides them underneath there, but they're in that narrow border as well.
Any other questions? Should we go to planning?
Yeah, let's go to planning.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler, you coming up? Tyler, you're already sworn in.
Good evening. Tyler Borsak for the planning department. So I'll get started and I guess we'll jump to some questions. So the parcel is located on the west side of Treasure Island Drive in Amagansett. The project before the board is to allow an existing shed with small concrete patio to remain within side yard lot line setbacks and outside of pyramid regulations, and to allow the parcel to remain 100% cleared of duneland vegetation. The parcel is in Beach Hampton area of Amagansett. Beach Hampton has low elevations and high groundwater table and is set within the Double Dunes natural area of East Hampton. Any increase in construction within the area could contribute to the gradual elimination of the natural characteristics on the parcel and in the area, cause an increase in surface runoff, reduce the ability to maintain screening between neighbors, reduce the dune land characteristics of the area, and could increase the cumulative impact of sanitary effluent in a densely developed neighborhood. The subject parcel is extremely non-conforming to several aspects of the town code, including lot size, which at 4,000 square feet is 1/5 of the required 20,000 square foot minimum for B resident zoning. The lot is also non-conforming to lot width at only 50 feet in width. With the non-conformity in lot width, they are granted relief under the 4/10 rule. Utilizing the 4/10 rule, they would have to have an 8-foot setback for any structure on the property. In addition to lot width and lot size, several of the existing improvements on the property are also non-conforming to front, side, and rear yard lot line setbacks. It's also worth noting that the parcel is up against the lot and total lot coverage maximums, but they are conforming to those maximums. It appears that the shed that the applicants are requesting to maintain in its current location was constructed sometime after 2010. Although it is possible the structure existed prior to that, it's just not able to obtain or to figure out when it was constructed based on the aerial images. The shed is located only 1.1 feet from the northern side yard lot line and is also accompanied by a concrete pad located 1 foot from the northern lot line. The shed is approximately 7.3 feet in height, and according to the supplied plans, is 6.8 feet outside the town pyramid regulations. The zoning board recently denied a similar request for a shed at 24 Jacqueline Drive, approximately half a mile to the east of the subject property. The 24 Jacqueline Drive application was for a shed to remain 0.6 feet from the northern side yard lot line setback with a similar pyramid request. Ultimately, the variances for the shed and the concrete pad can be considered egregious variances requests, given that there are other conforming locations on the property closer to or even up against the residence. A shed of the same dimensions would still require variance, even up against the residence. However, it would be a much better candidate for the grant of a variance compared to the existing location that it's in now. The board should weigh the benefit to the applicant against the board's past practices regarding side yard setback and pyramid variance requests, as well as the potential to set a precedent in the area of many similar properties with similar constraints, and the impacts that those could have on neighboring properties. The applicant is also requesting to keep the existing 100% clearing on the property. According to the 2008 certificate of occupancy, the parcel had approximately 1,700 square feet of beach vegetation, which has also been cleared. The addition of the shed and gravel area on the north and west sides of the parcel, the area for potential revegetation has been limited even further because of the additions of those structures. The request to keep the 100% clearing should be examined closely by the board. While the lot is small, the gradual elimination of beach vegetation in this area could have significant long-term impacts on the character of the neighborhood, which is known for its secondary duneland habitat. Allowing the parcel to remain with no duneland vegetation has the potential to set a precedent in the area, which could lead to an eventual change in the landscape and the character of the area. The Planning Department recommends that the board require the revegetation of all areas which are not encumbered with structures to reestablish and retain what little duneland character that is possible on the property. And as far as duneland vegetation on the property, there was a 2004 lot inspection which noted duneland vegetation on the property. The 2005 determination also noted duneland vegetation on the property. And again, the CO in 08 noted at least vegetation on the property. What it was at that point in time is hard to tell, but the 2004 lot inspection by the planning department did note the presence of dune vegetation.
Okay, and the 2004 denial that was in the neighbor's letter for the deck, is that the deck that is there and that you stated was on the C of O?
It confused me as well. It is slightly different. I can bring it up to help out.
Yeah,
This is the 2004 determination, which granted a front yard setback variance for the deck over here on the front side of the property and denied a variance on the south side. This deck did dip down a little bit. And I can't tell based on the history and the information if that was the change that got denied.
well, I had the description that got denied in front of me. So it says relief or approval denied, a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, a 7.2 foot variance to allow the deck to remain 0.8 feet from the side yard south lot line where 8 foot is required.
So that would be the small section
I'm wondering if it's a small section on
Yeah,
that survey,
for that amount.
because that seems like
Survey
that's what it
says
is.
0.6.
And I don't know if that was interpreted to then be part of like a walkway and not a deck.
Yeah, I don't
Because
know.
this is the CO. It's slightly different. It doesn't include that little like bump down here.
Oh, so that was C of O.
This was the CO.
Okay. I
Right.
don't know if we can do much about it.
Right. And then this was in 2008. So my only assumption was that this was the section that had to get removed. And this was
It could
considered a
be.
walkway, not a deck.
That, it could be.
That's my only guess as far as that. I don't know, obviously, but that's the best guess that I can give.
Okay.
But yeah, this was the 2008 CO on the property. So that's what I had to base things on.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, about the revegetation that we're talking about, I visited the property also, and it is, as the applicant has stated, it's very dark. There's a lot of,
Yes.
the bamboo is encroaching. What kind of revegetation?
Yeah, I mean, beach grass you could certainly try. I don't know if bayberry might be appropriate. The sanitary systems in the front yards, you can't do anything too significant there. Certainly on the north side of the property, you could try some things where the lawn is right now. That would be probably the front yard and the north side of the house is probably the only reasonable location. Everything else has things that wouldn't really allow it to do too much there. So I don't think the 1,700 square feet number, we didn't suggest that as a possible number because if structures are approved, then certainly that would be less already. But it's really not any other reasonable locations to do it in. So you're looking, looking at to the north of the house and maybe in front of the house with beach grass at best. But yeah, it is very shaded in there as well.
And you're not, the gravelled area and the the brick areas, you're not counting that as structures, are you? Or they are counted as structures?
Right, yeah, they would be, yeah. Yeah, the brick
So-
areas existed for a very long time. The gravel area is new, the shed is new. So depending on what the board does with that, would be a separate issue. But as far as revegetation is concerned, we were just suggesting up to whatever improvements are there. But yeah, the north and east side of the property are probably the most reasonable.
North and east, yeah. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for Tyler?
No.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank
You have anything? Oh, Matt, is there anybody in the public? Anybody here in the public that would like to address?
Yes, we have two holding.
Okay, you want to find out
Okay.
if,
I'm going to let in first phone number of 5495.
It would be, yeah. Yeah, the brick areas existed for a very long time.
Caller,
The
you're
gravel
going to have
area
to
is new,
mute
the
your
shed is
device.
new. So depending on what the board does with
Hello?
that, would be
Hello?
a separate issue. As far as revegetation is concerned, we were just suggesting up to whatever improvements are
Hello?
there.
yes,
But yeah,
caller,
the
can you
Caller-
mute whatever device you have behind you? Thank you. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, are you here for this particular hearing?
Yes, I am.
Can you introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Thomas Doyle, and I was the person who sent in the letter and submission over the weekend. And I would ask the board to consider
Thomas,
three.
before you begin, are you an attorney?
Oh, no.
Do you swear?
God
affirm to
forbid.
tell- Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask you to consider three things when you consider this variance request. The first is, I am amazed at how a certificate of occupancy was issued in 2008 when there was no evidence of compliance to the prior ZBA order. I submitted 2 pictures which shows the 2 different front deck locations, and you can see in one of the pictures the property stake line. The deck is 8 inches from my lot, and it's just ridiculous. I guess the other thing I would ask you to look at is I had a chance to look at the file today. There's a survey done in October of 21. The survey shows a new fence that my next door neighbors put in, which in some places encroaches by almost a foot. It looked like it encroached before, but I wasn't there. I haven't gotten a recent survey, but their survey shows that it encroaches. So I would ask you to consider not allowing people to do stuff and ask permission later, but to ask permission first before you embark on that kind of effort. That's all I have,
Thank you.
unless you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, next caller.
Okay. Last 4 digits, 9735. And I'll give you a moment to mute any device that you have on that you're listening to, and then I'll let you in. And here we go.
Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
are you here for the Melantritz application?
Well, yes, for the one involving the 257 Fairview.
That
No,
was canceled.
no.
That was the
That was
canceled.
canceled, sir.
That was canceled?
Yes, it's not tonight. It will be rescheduled, I assume, at some other point.
Okay. Okay.
All right,
And we'll
thank
be
you.
notified of the change?
Yes, you will.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll wait a-
Do you have anything else to address in final closing? I'm gonna step up to the mic if you do.
No, basically, we wanted to, as I said, go by the book and try to make things right when we realized it wasn't, and, talk to the right people, like engineers and the surveyor, as far as what we could do about the shed and our neighbors, because they were the ones that were mostly impacted by it, and they were okay with it. So we ask you to consider how valuable it is for our small space, and it not hindering anyone's lot line. And we would plant as many things as possible. I'll be happy to plant more grass if we can, but just to realize how valuable that shed is for our small little gem of Amagansett. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan, you want to close it out?
In the matter of Rose Malandredos, Malandredos. There's a typo in the public hearing notice. 48 Treasure Island Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Number 300-175-5-20. I make a motion to close the public hearing record.
Hearing
The
and
hearing.
record.
And the hearing.
I'll second it.
I concur as well. Thank you. Our next hearing is Maurice, and I'm going to attempt Iudiconi. I'm not sure. One of the two is probably close. At 184 Soundview Avenue in Montauk, in Suffolk Tax Map number 300-3-1-1.2. And again, the applicant is Maurice Iudiconi. Size and location is 58,935 square foot at 184 Soundview Drive in Montauk. The description is to place 1,000 cubic yards of bluff-compatible fill, biodegradable erosion matting, and beach grass along an eroding bluff on a parcel of land containing coastal bluffs, beaches, and tidal wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the Town Code and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is AE Residence, VE Velocity Zone, and X Flood Zone. And the secret class is type 2. Council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We do, pursuant to the Town of East Hampton Code, Section 255-9-23. We have a certified mailing that was performed on November 10th, 2022, and a posting that was performed on November 17th, 2022, both 10 days prior to this public hearing.
Thank you. Who's handling this one?
That's mine, Mr. Chair. Brian's going to help me with the photos.
I'm sorry, I just need a moment.
Good. Okay, here's a sign posting. I took these photos when we first scheduled the hearing, but I went back again today to see, and I see that it is posted again today. So it's been posted both for the first hearing and for this one successfully. Next. We're looking down the lane here. This is right at the end of Soundview, where it bridges from a paved area to a graveled area. We're looking basically southwest from here. Next. Turning to my way, this was a drizzly day. I'm looking back up Soundview. I'm looking now back to the northeast. Next. Right almost directly across the way is a road up into another portion of the subdivision. So there's a little bit of a corner there. You can see the gravel in your right corner where we're going from paving into gravel. Next. Now I'm back looking down the driveway from that spot across the way. You can see there's a gate beyond it, several 60, 80 feet down the driveway. Next. Now I've just popped myself through and around the gate, and here's a photo of the house and a detached garage as it exists. Next. Work my way to beyond the house. You can see the sound beyond, and I'm standing over a pool that sits to the northwest side of the residence. Next. Now I've made my way towards the waterfront, and there's a long deck that has got a gate here in front of you and rails on both sides, and you'll see as we progress exactly what's ahead of us. Next. I've gone further down, and now we're at Claire's point, past more of the formal deck, and this walkway continues out across what is a very heavily vegetated area as we approach the bluff crest. Next. One point here, you'll see that this walkway, and I think I have another photo when you're out on it, but there is actually no fill on either side of it at this point. There's been enough erosion so that it would naturally call for a rail. So when you're walking on that at this point, it's a little wide open. Next.
We're going to lose a ZBA member.
Yeah. Now I'm standing at the top of the staircase, I'm about to look down. I've looked to the east. You'll see off in the distance, there's a hard revetment, and you'll see some down below us. You'll see some of the geocube bags that are piled up. There'll be some other photos. You can see them stretching off, but there'll be a better shot. Next. This is looking at the face of the cliff, and we can see the erosion that's taking place. You can see the character of that. It's been described in the TAM, the kinds of soils they are, but you see there's an awful lot of concentration of sand here, which erodes rather quickly. Next. Now I'm taking a look. That was looking myself slightly east. Here I am standing on that same top of the staircase. I'm looking west. Again, the character of the face of the bluff, and there's a significant amount of erosion we'll be discussing next. Again, a little bit further, and you get an idea of the sweep of the land. We're looking out this way towards Gardner's Island, and it's quite a nice spot, but there's obviously some problems going on now with the erosion on this particular location. Next. I've walked my way down, and you can see from above that railing that sort of ends as it goes off, there's a section of that walkway that obviously at one point was stretching out over land, which has now been seriously eroded. I don't have a photo to compare this, but we can certainly talk with the planning about this, but we can see that there's been obviously since the construction of the walkway and the staircase, some significant amount of erosion. Next. I've turned and looked to the east, and it's mentioned in the TAM, and it is obvious when you're here that part of the significant problem that's taking place on the parcel in the discussion has to do with the hardening of the beach that took place to the east. Looking off to the east, again, in the distance, there's another parcel which has a rigid revetment there. I'll get another photo of it later. But here are these geobags as we've seen them in other locations, and we can see what's happened as they become exposed. They are deteriorating. The ones to the right you see are breaking down. Next. Now, it was mentioned in the TAM that 17 feet of this extends out onto the parcel of the applicant, and that portion of what you're looking at here is extending out onto the applicant's property. You can see that immediately to the right of where we see the geocubes, the kind of scouring that's gone on and the kind of retreat has happened to the cliff, to the face of the bluff. Next. I'm looking to the west now, and again, just to give you an idea of the character of what we're talking about, the height of the cliff, the TAM suggests that the house is set at 24 feet above sea level, and we can see that there's probably a good 20-foot drop here that we can notice almost immediately, something in that 15 to 20 foot. Next. A little bit further, again, just to show you that this is a great, nice, expansive beach. And as we start to pull out of the area of major scouring, you can see that the cliff moves a little closer to the high tide line. Next. I'm going to turn around from that far spot, and I'm going to look way down the beach. I can see some white in the cliffs, the geocubes, and beyond that, a house that has the rigid revetment. Next. Again, I just wanted to get back a little bit further and show the character of what we have here. Next. I've got closer now, pretty much takes into scope the property that we are discussing. We can see to our left, there's the corner of the geocubes, the staircase, and then this concave area that's going to be under discussion. Next. Now walked a little bit further down just to show what we will be discussing, and we continue to discuss whenever we have these shorefront properties, and that is the scouring that can take place from adjacent properties and adjacent hardened areas. We have the geocubes to our right, which you can see the condition of them is not great. And of course, we have the solid revetment beyond. Next. Just taking a look back from a spot where I was, a turnaround, again, see the deteriorating state of the geocubes. And beyond that, you can see even from here that there's been a significant amount of retreat in terms of the cliff and the cliff structure and the scouring that's taken place. Next. Just working my way back up, I wanted to show the intensity of the vegetation as you get back up onto the top of the cliff. Next. Could be near the end here. Again, looking down on this, there's some cherry in here that's been heavily pruned, but there's very thick and heavy vegetation at the top, which provides a buffer from the residents. Next. That's about it.
That's the last one.
Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Any questions? Ed? No? Aaron, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Aaron Tertunian, First Coastal Corporation, West Hampton Beach, New York, on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Aaron. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, proceed.
Thanks for hearing me this evening. Appreciate the introduction from board member Johan. That was pretty complete. This is clearly a difficult site. And we have come before you tonight with a natural bluff restoration project. And we think that this meets all of the standards under the code. Just for some additional background, the stairway that was so well illustrated is hanging in the air because between 2018 and 2022, this property lost between 30 and 40 linear feet horizontally, which is a rate of almost 10 feet per year. So this is very, very serious. Although it does have a wide beach, that beach is very low. And what happens is during storms, the beach is completely submerged and the waves are able to travel across the beach into the toe of the bluff and erode it. In the TAM, there was a remark regarding the swallows. Unfortunately, the rapid rate of erosion has eliminated all of the swallow nests. Although that was an initial concern, I don't think it is right now. Also in the TAM, the staff asked us to review whether or not, what our opinion was on the durability of this and the persistence of it. And the answer is not very. This has got an erosion rate of 10 feet per year. We're going to put 1,000 yards of fill in here. I don't know how long it's going to last. It could last a year, could last a month. But under the code, this is what we're up against. I would, if the board would indulge me for a couple of minutes, Brian, do you have an aerial photo that we can show this? I think it's important to put this property into context. And this is not the application before you, but it may be the application before you in the future if what we try to execute now doesn't work. I should also point out that we do have a DEC permit for this work that was issued in 21 or 20, I think. 21? Can't remember. And most recent. Thank you. And if we could just zoom out a little bit, please. Well, this is actually
zoomed out as it gets. Zoom in, but I can't zoom out.
Okay. Well, here's actually, this is pretty good because you can actually see the yellow area is the steep bluff face where the contours are very tightly together. So whatever what is this, the subdivision survey overlaid?
This is the 2021 GIS aerial over the tax maps.
And what's the topo from?
Topo is from, I believe, 2007 LiDAR.
Right. So that's what's happened on this site between 2007 and today. And as member Johan pointed out, yes, there are hard structures immediately east of this, but there's a mile of hard structures east of this. And so this is on the receiving end of that, and the erosion that we're seeing here is going to continue. One of the things that we've been investigating is our alternatives to traditional hard structures, but something that's more resilient than sand alone, because sand alone, I don't think is going to last here. So if you'll indulge me for a minute, I'm going to do a little show and tell. Brian, there was in the intro photos, there were some broad photos of the beach that I think showed the characteristics.
Is this, are you going to show us something that might be done in the future? Well, I don't know if that's applicable to this application. I mean, if you want to spend 2 minutes on it quickly.
No more than that.
And then move on.
Move on. I just want to introduce the type of material that you find on the beach after heavy erosion in the middle of the winter. Okay, these are pebbles to cobbles. And if you look in these photos that were taken, you can see these stones. You can see larger ones up by the base of the cliff, and you can see smaller ones in front of us. And I think if you go to another couple of photos, you might see them a little bit better. My point is this. In geology, this is called a lag deposit. They lag behind because the energy of the waves can't move them as fast as it can move the sand. And there is a feature called a cobble berm, which occurs both naturally. If you go out to Montauk Point, you'll see it. When you walk from downtown Montauk out to the point, you'll see the beach is mostly cobble because of the high wave energy. That's all that's left. And you're seeing that starting to form on this beach as well, because the only things that are stable here are things that are bigger than sand. So I anticipate coming back to you sometime in the future to ask you to consider what is a cobble berm, where we use native size material.
Get back to this because I know we have questions for it and all that stuff. So I want to stay on track.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Yeah.
Thank you for the show and tell.
So I believe I've addressed the issues raised in the TAM. I respectfully ask that you close the hearing and issue our permit.
Want to concentrate on the access road.
Okay.
Question I have is what's going to happen after, and if this is reoccurring, because you're gonna have to do some clearing.
Yes.
What's going to happen after? And if this is reoccurring and you're required to re-veg, are we gonna have to continue clear this if we're doing continual restoration? So address what you see, what's happening with that roadway.
Well, unfortunately, this is the only way to access the site. There's no public access to the east of here. Everything is, ends at the top of the cliff. And this is the only way to get to the beach. We've tried to minimize it by next to the house. We're going directly over already improved area, grassed area. We're going to cover that with protective materials so that we don't damage the things that are already underneath there, including a propane tank. But we're going to have to clear that area in order to get down to the beach. We're going to have to build a ramp to get down to the beach. And it's very likely we're going to have to come back and do this again if all we're going to do is sand, as the code allows. I could see us being in here. We could re-veg it, and with, I would recommend only with, grasses, at least for the first year, to see if this is going to be a frequent event. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to go in there and put in expensive shrubs that are just going to have to be torn out in a year or two.
You're going to build a ramp that's parallel to the crest of the bluff.
Right.
What machinery are you going to use to do that, and how do you propose to remove it?
Well, we have a construction detail in your file, but essentially we do this on many projects. We do initially it's done with the types of equipment are a hydraulic excavator and a skid steer, and the material is brought down by the skid steer or payloader, dropped over the edge until we can get enough of an area to begin the ramp. And then we use the skid steer to shape the ramp. And then on the way out of the site, the good thing is that we can basically back out of the site with the hydraulic excavator and just drag the material into a rough shape before it gets hand graded.
Now, where do the geocubes that are there interfere with the property? They encroach on this property?
Yeah, you can see in the site plan that we have up on the upper right-hand corner, just for a point of reference, the geotextiles you're referencing are called trap bags. It's a particular type of geotextile. So you can see that they're basically sitting on top of rock. So they're not independent on the beach. You see in the photos that were presented that they sit on top of basically a line of rock, and then these are the top of that.
Is there a proposal to remove them during this project?
If you want us to remove them, we'll remove them.
Well, 17 feet of them are on the property of the parcel of the applicant. Is that correct? That's what was stated in this TAM. Yeah, we don't know the exact.
I don't know the exact, but
portion-
they're certainly intruding.
Some portion of it's on the property.
Yeah.
I guess this is a general question, and it's already been raised, and you've raised it yourself. There's going to be a fair amount of effort and a certain amount of destruction to do this.
Mhm.
It almost seems like it's pointless to me. If you're going to lose 10 feet a year, and you're going to put 1,000 feet of cubic yards of material down here, I can imagine one storm taking that material and it's gone. Now we're going to create this highway for a solution that is probably not even as effective as calling it a Band-Aid. We're going to put that sand there, but it's extremely vulnerable where we're looking at it.
Yeah, I agree, but under the code, I don't have a lot of choices.
So you and your client, the applicant, are faced with the potential that this is something that will be done on a regular basis. You'll be back in here saying, we want to go ahead and replenish the sand we lost in this last winter storm and the next winter storm, and so on and so on. You stated, and I believe you, that from between 18 and 20, you lost between 30 and 40 feet.
18 and 22, yes.
Yeah, and 22, I'm sorry. It's a pretty phenomenal number.
Yep.
And when you're down there, it's a pretty phenomenal site.
Yep.
So the devastation is very obvious. And it seems to me that we're really looking at a much bigger problem than this 1,000 yards of fill can possibly address.
I agree. But again, under the code, this is what's permitted.
Thank you. Questions? Anybody? Sorry. Okay, maybe we'll hear from Brian.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian,
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members.
you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Brian Frank, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town of East Hampton. I'm familiar with this property. I've been there a number of times over the years. I'm going to sit down and kind of run through some other aerial photos and a little bit more about the erosive history and that revetment on the adjoining property to the east, which is the elephant in the room, and that's unfortunately a significant contributing factor to what's happening on the on 184 Soundview. These aerial photos are all in your file, but the erosion rate was lesser from an earlier time period. I'm going to just show you 2010. This is a 2010 aerial of the two properties. This is before Hurricane Sandy, obviously. This is 184. This is the property you're considering now. You can see, as Aaron mentioned,
that coincides with those earlier contours that we were talking
exactly. I was just about to say that. Here are those tightly located contour lines along the face of the bluff. The adjoining property to the east, 180 Soundview, was unarmored at this time. This property is the western end of, I could look it up, but I think it's about 3,100 feet altogether of shore hardening that's located along Captain Kidd's and Soundview Drive. It's downdrift of the Montauk Inlet. It kind of feeds the problem on a couple of different levels. You've got the flow of sand is somewhat interrupted by the presence of the inlet. That sand is usually, if not always, at least recently, put down drift. But as these properties have hardened since the late 70s, early 80s going forward, that further starves the downdrift properties of sediment. Erosion is a natural process. It is a normal cycle of things on bluffs and beaches. It's it does get exacerbated by anthropomorphic activities, and that's certainly the case here. This area is all part of the Culloden Headlands. It's a very different, it's a significant natural area. It's a scenic area of statewide significance. It's a lot more significant habitat than the altered properties to the east. And I think that was evident from Member Johann's photos. So between 2001 and 2010, and I'm not going to bring up the 2001 aerial unless you really want me to. It's in your file. But between 2001 and 2010, using these aerial photos, the planning department estimates an erosion rate of a little bit over half a foot a year, 0.55 feet per year over that 9-year time period. Hurricane Sandy occurred in the fall of 2012. That was a significant event that changed a lot of the shoreline, and it's hard to factor that one event into the long-term condition along the shoreline here. But as noted in the assessment, between 2016 and 2021, using similar aerial photos, and I'll just go to 2021 because that was what was most available when I prepared this assessment for the board's review. The erosion rate at 184 was 3.8 feet per year. I don't know about the 10 feet per year between since 2018 to now, but it was a little bit less than 4 feet per year between 2016 and 2021, and that's still a significant number. And you can see in 2021, this revetment, which is a combination of stone armor and trap bags. Those trap bags are larger than the geocubes that you've seen in other applications. They're significantly larger. This structure was built, though, in 2014 without any real environmental review that I'm aware of, and certainly without any municipal permits. So it's unclear how well it's engineered or if it's been engineered at all. And there was certainly, in the absence of any real environmental review, there's also no mitigation that was built in to try to minimize the impact on the adjoining property. And I think as long as this structure sits here like this, unmitigated, it really takes a naturally volatile situation. And the Culloden Headlands are exposed. There's a large fetch out there. Block Island Sound gets some pretty big wave energies. Some pretty large exposure to northeasterly and northwesterly winds in the winter. This is not a sheltered area by any stretch of the imagination, but being on the downdrift end of a long row of hard structures, especially one that's unmitigated, really puts I'm going to get the name wrong too, so I'm just going to keep calling it 184 Soundview, puts them at a disadvantage. This is the crest, the elevation is about 24 feet, as was mentioned by either Member Johann or the chair a little earlier. There is no vehicular access to the beach here at all. There are a few other properties to the west that don't show up on the aerial, but maybe I can get you one of the headlands. And to the west of that is town parkland, where the only access. So here's the property that we're considering now. This is 184 right here. This is 180. This is the nearest public access, and it doesn't involve anything vehicular. This is a town park. There's a parking area up here. There's a pedestrian staircase that gets down to the shoreline, but there really isn't any vehicular access to the shoreline. But this shoreline also shows you, I think, the majesty of the bluffs of this area, of the Culloden Point Headlands. This is why this area, or part of the reason this area is in a coastal erosion overlay zone 2, in contrast to the zone 4 to the east that are significantly degraded and structurally altered. And it's clearly the town's desire in the LWRP, in CARP, in the comprehensive plan to retain this. So this is a challenging application because the house now, I do want to point out, by the way, there have been a more recent set of plans and a more recent survey since the preparation of the technical analysis. So your survey, most recent survey is dated September 29th of this year. It shows the house, I think, 76 feet away from the bluff at its closest point. The plans that I had up on the screen before while Aram was speaking are from October 12th. Both of those plans were received on the 13th of October, and that's the most recent information that you have in the property. But as it's pointed out, this is a challenging site. It's to come back to the plan. There's very limited access. It's a very tight distance between the air conditioning compressors on the east side of the house and this rock wall where the skid steerer and excavator are proposed to access. You saw that the area that the walkway traverses is pretty heavily wooded. That's, it looks like shrubs, but most of that is black cherry that's been topped for the view, but it's fairly robust woody vegetation. How that vegetation is removed and pulled out, keeping it limited to this area and the access road is something that the board has to be comfortable with the level of detail. I don't know how relevant it is, but obviously this is not a true representation of the profile of the bluff. In member Johan's photos, you could see that there is a steep slope, but there's a slope there in the photos that I have from last year. You can see the upper reaches of the bluff are sheer, nearly vertical, and then there's a little, there's more slope down at the toe here. I do think it would have been unpractical to try to bring fill, especially working from the beach on a heavily vegetated property like this, all the way up to an elevation of 24 feet and to try to stabilize that. I think the bank swallows will come back, by the way. They do every year. They like those sheer faces. It's fairly predator resistant. I don't know that some toe work here is going to compromise that. And I think that's, no pun intended, but that's the price of making an omelet here. I think you have to let the applicant have an opportunity to try to stabilize this bluff. But if there is any, if there is a failure, the role of an unengineered and unmitigated structure immediately to the east cannot be overlooked. This is not just, this all you can do here is armor this property to protect it. There are other forces at play here. It's beyond the scope of this board, but it is worth noting that there has been a lot of progress made on a new dredging plan for the Montauk Inlet that'll take the navigational design of the inlet from 12 feet at mean low water to more than 17 feet at mean low water and put more sand on the West Lake Drive beaches than has ever been placed in a single event before. It probably doesn't mean much to a homeowner who doesn't want to rely on the Army Corps of Engineers. I could understand that, but it's hopefully not as hopeless as it might, appear on its face right now. I think that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions that I can answer, I'll do my best.
The proposal is looking to establish and maintain the grass path for continuing bluff maintenance. That's the access, right? That would mean to us, that would be a second access to the beach for this property. How do we handle that? Unless we carve it out in uniqueness, but that would be, a second access, which it would be a single access to the beach.
True. Typically, one access is typically what a waterfront property gets. I think a construction access like this doesn't really provide access to the beach because it terminates on the crest and that earthen road. I suppose you could use it to get down to the beach depending on how much fill is in that path, but it is
big drop.
Clearly inferior to using the staircase. And that might be a distinguishing characteristic.
Okay.
And the lack of alternatives. There is no, I don't know how else you get material. I had met with Aram earlier this year. I met with his partner, Billy Mack, on site. If not last year, then the year before. I think it was last year. Another alternative that was discussed was clearing more along the crest of the bluff and dumping the fill over the top. And it was the planning department's opinion that that would be more invasive than what's proposed here. And that's not an alternative I'd encourage the board to support at this time.
I have one further question, then we'll move on, but the question I had earlier for Aram about the encroachment of the neighboring structure, hardened structure, removing that, do you have a comment on that?
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get the rocks off the beach. I think really that, that structure needs to be addressed by both the town and the DEC. The trap bags are clearly deteriorating. I don't want to get too, I have strong opinions about what's on the property. I don't know how much detail it's worth getting into right now, but what's on the property right now is not static, it's degrading. Ideally, that structure should be removed and that property should partner and use it and use 180 for access for both of these properties on a more comprehensive shoreline restoration than 184 rowing by themselves.
So the one that was brought up by the chair earlier, and that was the access road being the major concern that we are going to have here. The effort to stabilize the tow has been discussed. And I know that you've been part of not the engineering of it, but the planning of this. I guess what we're going to be left with is if we were to approve this, we're going to trust that we haven't created a greater problem by putting the road in than the solution of adding some sand at the bottom of the cliff. We hope that this area will get properly maintained and revegetated, and of course that'll be required. But that is a concern. Concern is that I saw how heavily vegetated it is, and we're going to cut that vegetation out, leave it exposed, and there's going to be a certain amount of slope. It's not the steepest part where you're going to be driving on, obviously. It's not that. But nonetheless, it's still a concern here. We're going to be right along the property line there. We certainly don't want to create another sluice way, another problem here.
I think you have the right to require notification whenever work occurs, both notification prior to and again upon completion. And I think you always have the right to terminate your permit if it's going beyond the parameters of what was granted. And hopefully that's a strong enough incentive to maintain adherence to the conditions.
Yeah, I'm good. Joe?
Well, it's something to wrestle with, that's for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Closing.
Very sobering.
Just several quick points of information. The erosion rate I gave you is by comparison to the two surveys you have in your file. So if you want to look at that, you'll see that's where that comes from. The second point is that I did a quick calculation that in the 4 years between 18 and 22, we've lost 6,800 square feet of vegetation, of dense vegetation from the top of the bluff because of that erosion. And our access road is probably going to clear less than 1,000.
Yeah.
So I put that in there.
I have one question for you. Can we keep those rock samples? No,
Check the public.
Yeah, is there anybody in the public that would like to address this application? Not anybody on the phone?
Zero holding, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
Okay, then in the case of Maurice Ayudacone at 184 Soundview Avenue, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-003-01-1.2, I would like to close the public hearing this evening on this matter this evening.
And the record.
And close the public hearing and the record this evening.
Second.
Concur.
I concur as well. Thank you.
We have a problem getting those two things together.
Our next and final hearing is Wickapog Realty 1 LLC at 391 East Lake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-7-3-5. And again, the applicant is Wickapog Realty One LLC.
Very sober.
Size and location is 73,269 square foot total. Includes the underwater land and 391 East Lake Drive, map number 6595, map of Indian Real Lot number 5, and described property in Montauk. The description is to demolish an existing residence and construct approximately 5,649 square foot of two-story residence, including attached garage, swimming pool, decking, and sanitary system on a parcel containing tidal wetlands and surface waters. A natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the town code and any other relief necessary. The closest structure and sanitary system have been proposed 101 feet and 232 feet respectively from wetland boundary. Zoning district is A residence, AE flood zone, elevation 5 and 6, and X flood zone. The secret class is type 2. And council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
We do. On November 18th, 2022, we have a certified mailing. On November 17th, 2022, we have a posting to the actual site. Both meet the requirements of 255, Section 9, Section 23 of the Town of East Hampton Code.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Brian.
This is the most recent one.
Okay, now the survey I'm looking at, and you can confirm that it's the most recent, is January 20th of 2022. The survey, the most recent survey. We had a couple of different surveys here.
What date do you have?
January 20th of 2022.
Yes, that is the most recent survey.
Thank you. Okay, Brian. Well, this is the official notice of posting. I'm going to take a lot of shots around the neighborhood before I walk back to the house. It's a beautiful area. This is a shot looking across at the county park land area and up toward the northern part of East Lake Drive. Next. This shot going down the southward direction of East Lake Drive in the direction of Little Reed Pond. Again, it's county parkland across the street, and immediately adjacent to this property on the south, it's Town Nature Preserve. Next. Well, it's a sign indicating the nature preserve that is to the south, densely vegetated. Next. This is shot again across the street toward the county park, and you can see well, that's a county parkland sign on that telephone pole. Next. Walked a little further south, which there is an area over here where the local population can do shell fishing over on the right in Lake Montauk. And there is also culverted across that road next to Little Reed Pond, which is there. I think I go back to the house now. Yeah, so this is the driveway, and we'll work toward the house. Next. It's just another shot of the driveway with the town preserve to the south of it, and Lake Montauk in the distance. We go up to the property. Next. This is just an area along the driveway. I don't know if it was another area used for parking, but it was a little bit cleared out. This is the vegetation. This is on the north side now of the drive. Next. And this is the area in front of the house. And in the distance there on the right, it's the neighboring house, closest neighbor. Next. Now I'm standing in the back of the house. I went up the stairs. I'm standing on the deck, and this is a shot from the deck down to Lake Montauk. Next. And I turn, and this is a shot to the southerly direction of Lake Montauk, again to the town property and properties beyond. Next. And this is the area of the rock pile or revetment that's at the shoreline, and I believe you see it's inside the scenic easement on the survey. And next. And that's a little more of that looking down toward the southerly direction. Next. Now I'm just standing at the edge of the kind of where the scenic easement is and a shot of the back of the existing home today. And that's just a shot of the southern portion of the house that's there today. And I believe that might be it.
Yes.
Thank you. How are you? Want to
Good.
introduce yourself?
Bruce Anderson, Suffolk Environmental Consulting for the applicants, Wickabog Realty LLC.
You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the
Yes,
truth.
sir, I do.
Thank you, Bruce.
So this is a project where applicant proposes to demolish an existing 2,920 square foot single family dwelling with a deck, remove an existing septic system, construct an approximate 2738 square foot two-story residence, including an attached garage, swimming pool, decking totaling 4815 square feet in building coverage, along with an IA outs sanitary system on a parcel containing tidal wetlands and surface waters. Board should take notice of the following: is that the property contains this 1,812 square foot, one-story, one-family residence with the 360 square foot attached garage. And the 748 square foot attached deck. That's as per the certificate of occupancy. Approximately 20,300 square feet, constituting 53.6% of the lot area, is presently cleared. The clearing that occurred on the project predates the clearing regulations for the HPOD regulations adopted in 1995. The existing attached deck is located 73 feet from the tidal wetlands boundary, which was established by the town, while the existing house is located 85 feet from the wetland boundary. The existing house is serviced by a primary septic system located 149 feet from the wetland boundary. The attached deck is located 10 feet from the scenic easement filed in connection with the map of Indian Rills. The existing house is located 10 feet from the edge of existing natural vegetation at its closest point. And so the applicant proposes to demolish these structures and remove the existing primary septic system without disturbing any natural vegetation within the two scenic easements that are established for the property and within 150 feet of the wetland boundary. A review of your records indicate that the original house was built in 1979 and that a certificate of occupancy number 2491 was issued February 1st, 1980. This is a house with the attached deck and garage that exists today. In June of 2021, the applicant, then known as 391 East Lake LLC, filed and received a natural resources special permit from this board authorizing the demolition of the existing dwelling with attached deck and garage and the construction of a proposed deck, a 15 by 36 pool, and a proposed detached garage. The proposed building coverage calculated at 2,956 square feet and total proposed lot coverage at 4,951 square feet, or 13.1% of the lot area, where 15,999 square feet, or 42.2% of the lot area is allowed and permitted. The zoning board decision was recorded June 25th, 2021, and notes that the survey would bring the property into compliance with the existing clearing restrictions set forth in the HPOD regulations, that the proposed nature and use would be in harmony with and promote the general purposes of the town code described in 255-1-11, that the lot area was sufficient, appropriate, and adequate for the proposed improvements, that the proposed project meets all dimensional requirements, that the proposed use would not prevent the orderly and reasonable use of adjacent property owners or otherwise interfere with the enjoyment of nature of adjacent properties, that the proposed use may be introduced without undue disturbance or disruption to important natural features, that adequate buffer yards and screening would be provided to protect adjacent properties, and that adequate provision for stormwater controls were incorporated into the proposal. The approved redevelopment of the site did not take place, but instead was sold to Wickabog Realty LLC. The applicant then proceeded to redesign the improvements for the site to include a proposed two-story dwelling with patios, pools, sun deck, and attached garage. The proposed building coverage is at 4,815 square feet or 12.7 of lot area, where 20% is required or permitted. And the total proposed lot coverage of 7,993 square feet or 20.8% of the lot area, where 42.2% is permitted. All proposed improvements exceed the minimum setbacks from wetlands, and no clearing of indigenous vegetation within 150 feet of the wetland boundary or within the scenic easement is proposed. In addition, the applicant would further remove the rock pile as was required in the prior approval and prepare a native landscape plan that would comply with the present clearing restrictions set forth in the town's Harbor Protection Overlay District established in 1995, even though the existing clearing in the lot predates the 1995 regulations. I expect to prepare a landscape plan and note essentially all of the lot will be landscaped with natural native vegetation. I point out that the survey before you would likely change to remove the note that no vegetation be installed over the sanitary system as each as beach grass would be installed over the sanitary system and over all proposed dry wells. Now, if I can just walk over and point, what I'm referring to is this note here. Okay, it says no revegetation installed over sanitary storage. That is incorrect. I apologize. I've taken over this application. I've not filed its original applications. So I've put it through my own review. So this area would all be revegetated. The second thing I want to note is if you look down here, you'll see a proposed lot coverage of 7,983 square feet or 20.8%. That's got to be reduced to 20%. So you're going to see some modification there. But what you're going to wind up with is a revegetation of the site that is landscape plan this is going to change slightly. There's going to be a revegetation of this area because it has to be. And by the way, that's a good thing. This is a geomat system. And I called the engineers, P.W. Grocers, who prepared this plan. They have a plan for this. And I asked them for that. And their answer was what was meant was no trees or heavy woody vegetation because the root system will infiltrate this, the mat system, and it will cause it to fail. So what we do is we plant beach grass on top of these mat systems. And by the way, the beach grass is good because it also takes up nitrogen. Same would be true over the dry wells. We wouldn't put trees on top of dry wells. The dry wells are there to achieve the stormwater requirements of this town, which is to capture and recharge 2 inches of groundwater. Likely what will happen is there will be a slight reduction in the structural coverage here because we can't have this. I don't know why it's here, but I guess the prior consultant missed it. We cannot do that.
Why are you saying you cannot do that?
Because it conflicts with the DEC's regulations, which in this case are more strict than yours.
So you would have to give us an updated.
I plan to. And probably we would want to create a little path around the side of the house. So that's where this is headed, but I guess the point of the application is we're not really here asking for relief of anything. We don't need any zoning relief. We don't need any setback relief. We don't need any coverage relief. We don't require any of that. What we do need, what is actually regulated, is obviously we will be removing a house, okay, that is closer to the wetland boundary and very close to this scenic easement here. We are retreating from the shoreline in such a way, and from my review, and it's confirmed in the staff report, we're not asking for any zoning relief, any kind of special relief whatsoever. What's interesting and what I've discussed with the client is, look at this. You're saying to the world that you will have no outdoor formalized yard, and that is your choice to have. So you can't come back with some other, you could file anything you want, but likely nothing would be permitted. No additional clearing would be permitted once it's brought back into compliance with the H5.
But can't you say that because there's already a 2019 determination that went under great scrutiny by the zoning board at that time?
Right.
And you're increasing that. So you're saying to us that if we approve this, they can't come back in the future, but we already have a standard by a previous
we follow that
determination.
standard. The prior approval would receive a natural resource permit. It did not need or require any kind of relief whatsoever. Neither does this, is the point.
It's the
Right, but,
scope of it itself.
The scrutiny I'm talking about is the very natural resources part of the application.
But if you look at the findings that I read to you, I don't believe you could find otherwise with this.
What was the total lot coverage proposed or approved in that determination?
Total lot coverage, 13.1%. So we're going up 7%, approximately.
So there's a substantial increase in this one.
That's not substantial.
Anybody have any questions?
Well,
7% is not substantial.
yeah, I have a concern, the same thing about the house. Yes, it was previously approved, but it was 4,300 square feet. And now you're going up another 1,349 square feet, which is a considerable difference. Again, I'm concerned, you saw the photos, there's very little other homes in that area and everything is very unobtrusive. This just seems to me like it's very large amount in
But the
this
code
area.
allows it,
Change
and we're
the
not here
character.
asking for that relief. We're not asking for relief on cleared areas, and what we are doing is reducing, as was the previous application, we are reducing the nonconformities, eliminating actually, that occur. This is what the property looked like in 1994, prior to the adoption of the local law.
Maybe I'm confused here, but would it be appropriate to maybe wait, like put a pin in this and wait till we have revised plans from you? Because
They'll be pretty similar. We're not reducing it all that much. All I'm saying is when I looked at this, I'm not worried about your review, and I'm happy to, I plan on filing revised plans because this plan is designed has to be tweaked a little bit. That's why I've tried to point that out. This cannot be 20.8, and this has to be revegetated. You'd never leave this unvegetated. You'd be crazy to do that. So there are some issues with it, but they're design issues, which I'm sure I can work out with your staff. I don't think there'd be an issue there. We know how these things are supposed to be done. And, but we're here. We're not asking for relief. We're asking for a permit. And my review of the prior application as applied to here, we meet the standards. So you will see a revised plan. If you want to leave it open for that. That is you have the discretion, obviously, to do that. But it was our chance to present what's been before you, not by me, but by a prior application that was filed almost 2 years ago. So that's why we're here, because we need to establish a dialogue.
Okay, I'd like to hear from planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Well, no,
Go
I'd
ahead,
like to
ask
hear
your
from
question.
planning about the comment in the TAM about the sanitary geomax. being
Yeah, there seems to be a-
7.7 feet from the scenic easement.
That we'll hear from planning too,
Yeah.
because I think
Well,
that,
I can address that as well. Well, I pulled.
is there a conflict there?
No, I don't think so. So I pulled the resolution of the planning board, which is in your file already.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
And what it says is that there shall be a minimum setback of 20 feet from all scenic easement and reserve areas, period. It doesn't tell me 20 feet for anything, like 20 feet for structures or for driveways. And the only thing I can come up with is it's obviously poorly written. We can all agree on that because it doesn't identify what is set back 20 feet. That's point one. And point two is that it was never applied against this property. Otherwise, you couldn't have a driveway. The driveway is 20 feet. Within 20 feet, here's your easement. So you could never have a driveway. And you couldn't have a house either.
Well, if
You
it,
look at the house.
I would say, and we can ask Brian's opinion on this too, but if an easement is treated like a property line, I believe the septic system, you're allowed between up to 5 feet from the property line. Is
Right,
that
we're
correct?
7.7.
Yeah, 7.7. So, okay.
Now, the other thing too, though, take notice of this. Here's the existing house. It's in red right here. That's 10 feet from the scenic easement. So it wasn't applied against structures. So I'm at a loss. My observation is it's simply not applied to the lot, obviously. Because
Regardless, though,
developed after the restriction is
regardless, though, you're redeveloping the lot, so you would have to come into compliance with whatever,
imposed. I
but
don't think so. It's not applied. Why would I have to do that?
not.
I have a
Okay,
CO
we'll
for
move on.
this house today, 10 feet from the scenic easement. I have that. It's in your file. I have a driveway.
I get that.
But redeveloping changes that.
Right. I'd like to hear from Brian,
Yeah.
probably. Thank you. You'll have a chance to come back.
Excuse me?
You'll have a chance to come back up.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I think I'm still sworn in, right? Okay. So I'll leave the survey up from now. I do want to show you some aerial photos of both the subject property and some of the neighboring properties to give you an idea of the character of the neighborhood. But I think leaving the survey up here for discussion purposes is a good idea. This property is just a little bit north of Little Reed Pond, towards the northern end of East Lake Drive. It's a waterfront of Lake Montauk. This property was reviewed by the zoning board for a redevelopment in 2019 for, I think it's fair to say, a much less aggressively designed project. And I don't know if I should bring that up now or I'll bring it up later and just speak about what's proposed right now. But it was a smaller project. It met better setbacks. I'll show you the sanitary system that was proposed in that application or where it was approved. If you review that file, you'll see that there was an earlier design for a larger home that specifically showed a 20-foot setback from the scenic easement to the north. So the idea that the easement was not considered in the prior application is not correct. This application is for a house that's 4,946 square feet where 5,388 is the maximum GFA allowed on the property. So you're within 400 square feet of the maximum GFA. That does not include the 703 square foot attached garage that was proposed. The coverages, I do want to go over the coverages again. And if you compare the surveys side by side, it's pretty.
Excuse me, Brian, what did you say the house was?
The house was 4,000. The proposed house is 4,946 square feet.
Because the notice is saying 5,649.
I think that might.
Garage?
Well, this is the most recent set of plans. I don't know if that's the square footage I think that's even less. I don't think that can include the garage. I think that's a little bit less than the garage.
It is with the garage.
It is with the garage.
I think
Okay.
it's with the
All
garage.
right. I could double
It
check
says
that.
including attached garage.
So then it was. I apologize.
Okay.
But your lot coverage in 2019 was 2,956 square feet. That's 7.8%. What's proposed now is a lot coverage of 4,852 square feet at 12.5%, 12.8%. But that's a 64% increase in the size of what was originally approved in 2019. And I would suggest that that is substantial. Similarly, for your total lot coverage, you had an approval of 4,951 square feet, 13.1%. And now the total coverage proposed, which inaccurately doesn't include the driveway. It's supposed to. Our town code requires that it include the driveway, but be that as it may for now, it's proposed at 7,951 square feet, 21% total building coverage. That's a 61% increase. The revegetation that's proposed now is 12,702 square feet and requires some temporary clearing of more than 5,000 square feet. I do want to point out that there is no engineer's site plan for the sanitary system. The survey notes that it was prepared by a local engineering firm, but you don't have a copy of that in your file. And the scale of the improvements that are proposed here make being able to adhere to these very, very challenging. This zoning board has been reviewing applications literally for decades, and it is not uncommon for as-built structures to come out a little bit different than the way they're approved. Things happen in the field. It's not uncommon when you're right up against these maximums. The potential for this to be to exceed what's proposed here is very, very high. I think adhering to these limitations are impractical, if not impossible. You've got vegetation proposed entirely up to the, call it the eastern side of the western side of the house and the northern side of the house. You've got an average of separation of only 5 feet on the south side and east side of the property. The character of this property is wooded. This is not down in the dunelands where you're talking about beech heather and bearberry. The uncleared portions of this property are wooded. If you take a look at the vegetation in the scenic easement and the uncleared area outside of the scenic easement, it's a deciduous woodland canopy. It's a canopy of oaks, black cherry, and shad. There are some weeds in there. There are some invasives. There's olive, there's multifloral rose. It's not pristine, but it is a deciduous woodland. It's not dissimilar to the photos that Member Berger showed you in the parkland across the street. The planning department's recommendations for revegetation is going to be for woody vegetation. So I don't think it's either safe or practical to have vegetation up against the side of the house. Everybody needs a perimeter to get around the house. The idea of a house on East Lake Drive or a property on East Lake Drive without any outdoor space, outdoor recreational space beyond the patio is kind of unheard of. And development of this scale up against these setbacks to the extent that they is unprecedented. I would respectfully challenge Mr. Anderson to provide any similar relief that this or approval, if you don't want to use the term relief, that the board has provided in the last decade, and I don't think you'll find it. But if you do it here, it's going to set a negative precedent. This is just grossly over-designed for the property. This is not that much of a constrained property. This is a waterfront lot. The wetlands are along the shoreline, which is typical of most of the town's harbors, and certainly Lake Montauk. There are more constrained properties that have either tidal or freshwater wetlands, either also on the property or across the street or in proximity. But the planning department would characterize the constraints of this property as slight or unconstrained, because it is possible to build residential improvements without requiring any relief from, without requiring any variances from the town's natural resource setbacks. I think the language of that of the subdivision approval is clear. It says there'll be a setback of 20 feet from all reserved areas and scenic easements. That was shown on your earlier survey. That was shown in your 2019 approval. The driveway was specifically left out of the easement because it's obviously the driveway. How the existing house got built within those setbacks, that was an oversight. But to suggest that because an oversight was made in the past, the applicant is unbound by a condition of the subdivision in a redevelopment, if they have awareness of it, just doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm going to defer to council on that. But it's clear in the language of the Indian Rail subdivision, and it's clear from the design parameters of the earlier approval. I don't know if the plans are going to be left open. I don't know if the applicant has any idea what a 12,000 square foot revegetation would look like or what would cost, but the time to kind of factor that in to their plans is now, and not as a conditional of approval with an application on this scale. This is just too much development. The board is not I should say the applicant is not locked in to what was approved in 2019. There's room to redesign a house. There's room to design a larger house without coming right up against those minimum setbacks or violating that 20-foot setback of the scenic easement. And I think this is a time, if it's okay with the board, I do want to show you what was approved in 2019, just as a reference.
Maybe if we're going to leave the record open and you can't find it, we could have Nora distribute it to us.
Button and close the.
Oh. Technology, can't live with it. You can't live without it.
Oh, no. So this is your 2019 approval. This is an L-shaped residence. You can see the 12 foot of separation between the clearing and the perimeters. You can see where the sanitary system was proposed. This is the detached garage. Again, I'm not saying that the applicant is locked into these dimensions, but I think this demonstrates that this property can be redeveloped in a manner that not only meets the special permit standards that Bruce cited before. I don't think this application does, but it also has to be, it also has to satisfy the purposes of zoning in 255-111 of the town code. And I don't think you can do that by going right up to those maximum. The house, the scale of the improvements are just over-designed for the size of the property if you are going to adhere to the clearing restrictions of the Harbor Protection Overlay District, and that threshold was established in this approval. If you are going to honor these scenic easements, this just lowers the bar for what the zoning board has done on waterfront properties all over town for, in most cases, as long as I can remember. So this is the subject property on the aerial. This is Town Nature Preserve, Little Reed Pond to the east, And you can see the residence is not dissimilar to the other residences in the neighborhood. And if this scale of development is appropriate on this lot, then it's also appropriate on the adjoining lots. And that's going to dramatically change the character of the neighborhood of East Lake Drive, which is we all know is a New York State significant fish and coastal wildlife habitat. This is an area of scenic area of statewide significance. It's in the Peconic Estuary critical environmental area, and it's the reason that we have the natural resource special permit regulations in the first place. I don't have a copy of the initial survey that was submitted in 2019 for a larger house that was scaled back, but it is in your file from 2019. And you'll see the same surveyor, Gary Benz, showed that 20-foot setback. And in my opinion, that was because they knew when they were designing the redevelopment of this property that sanitary system had to be 20 feet from the scenic easement. Bruce is right. The language of the subdivision of the subwaiver approval doesn't say anything about structures. It basically says everything has to be 20 feet from the scenic easement. And that's what I think a clear reading of it states. That was the intent of the planning board. And again, your counsel has that information, and she'll give you your legal advice. That's pretty much it.
Do we have any
This
questions?
is just, again, it's just impractical for the limitations of the property. I don't think it has been thought through, and I don't think this can be constructed in adhering to those limits. I don't think you can install those geomats without encroaching into the scenic easement when they're only 7 feet away.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Brian?
No. Thank you, Brian. Matt, is there anybody here in the public that would like to address this application? Matt, is there anybody on the phone?
0 callers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, you're welcome to come up and close out if you want.
With all due respect, I've known Brian for many, many years. The prior decision does not trump your zoning code. It does not lock anyone into a house of a particular location, setback, etc. The prior decision is also expired. Also, it wouldn't take much work to determine whether the house next door was subject to the same setback. I intend to look into that. It looks like they are similarly situated relative to the scenic easement, so it wasn't applied there either. The house that's there today is protected by a CO. It's protected. The town's not going to tell them to remove your house. It is what it is. Now, so I think the board will probably leave the hearing open, and that's fine. The applicants, by the way, are here tonight, so they've heard both arguments.
I'm not sure if we're going to leave the hearing open, but we'll leave the public record open.
However you want to do it, it's fine. But again, we're not bound by the prior regulation. And if you go through the standards, which I did, I don't know how you can conclude that this compliant project doesn't meet the same standards as the prior compliant project. I don't think this board or any other board can tell an application, sorry, you can't plant natural vegetation as close to the house as you wish. I don't think you have that authority either. If you looked at the prior survey that was put up, you'll see revegetation on top of the septic system. See it. It was subject to a revegetation plan after the project was approved by this board. It was a condition of that approval, which I anticipated would be the same here. And like then and now, you would never have planted woody vegetation over an existing septic system. You would plant a beach grass or something similar to that. Why? Because it would.
We've already
destroy the
addressed
use
that.
of it.
Can you wrap up?
So the
without
point is,
readdressing?
we still comply with the requirements of the town. I do anticipate tweaking this somewhat. I'll be interested to see what the applicant has to say. I would suggest you keep it open, at least for written comment. If that's the practice of the board, I request that. And I think it's not for this board to say a compliant project on East Lake Drive is out of character with the neighborhood because there are smaller houses next door, because you are presumed to be within the character of the neighborhood if you comply with zoning setbacks, zoning coverages, et cetera. I don't think you can make that finding. That concludes my comment.
Thank you.
What are we to get now from them?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How much time do you need,
much
think you
time
need
you
the record open for?
I would say a month would be
A
fine.
month?
Okay, and you're going to submit the survey, the corrected survey?
Survey, I will provide you also with landscape plan, and I'll ask the engineers to give us at least, there is a cross section on your survey showing the geomaps with that. It's not fully engineered, but he's demonstrating the separation of groundwater. These engineers that they've hired are very good. I've worked with them in the past. They're very good engineers.
You are going to update those 3 items you just said, mentioned. You are going to update those.
You know why? Because I could be back here anyway.
Okay. Thank you. Brian wants to say something. He's raising his hand.
Brian, do you want to do a final?
Why don't you make it 6 weeks?
Okay.
6 weeks? Okay.
All right, thank you.
You don't have to enforce the DEC's coverage limitation. You want to leave the record open for a revised survey and a revegetation plan. I think that's fine. But if you're going to get substantive testimony about the rest of the subdivision, I just want to put that in there, that I think that may be reasonable for the board to reopen the record and continue the hearing if necessary. If you're going to get substantive testimony beyond tweaking some plans, which plans generally speak for themselves, then I just want to remind the board that you have that
Option.
that option. Exactly.
To leave the hearing open?
Leave it open.
Well, if you're talking about, looking at other houses and whether they meet the scenic easement and speculating, that's a little bit more than just, tweaking a survey as was described earlier.
The only thing I would say, we're not opining on anything. And I'm just looking at 2 houses that are set back.
Board, what's your
So,
I'm fine right now with where we're at. Yeah, I'm going to give him 6 weeks.
6 weeks for the public?
yeah. Okay. So for the matter of Wickapog Realty LLC at 391 East Lake Drive, tax map 300-007-03-05, and make a motion to close the public hearing and to leave the written record open for a period of 6 weeks from today in order for an updated survey, landscaping plan, and engineering and septic plan.
I'll second.
Concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes our hearing part of the meeting. We have concluded the administrative applications. We're going to move on to post-hearing decisions. And that is Bruce Bistrian. I am recused from this, so I'm going to step out and let the vice chair take over.
Can we just have can I have a 5-minute executive session with the 3 of you guys just to kind of go over a couple things before you start discussing that as well?
Okay, Matt, you get that? We're going to make a motion to go into executive session for 5 minutes. Do we have a second on that?
Concur.
I concur.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who seconded?
Yes, I seconded.
Ed seconded.
I looked at the chair.
Thank you. Please clear the room. Thank you.
Waved your magic wand.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, do you?
Laura, I think that's you too,
I
right?
need to leave.
Oh, I have to go.
Boy has to leave. I didn't mean you.
Okay, Ed, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. So we've just met in executive council here to have a discussion about this next item for tonight, which is a decision on the Bruce Bristian case that has been in front of us for a hearing before that. After consultation with council and talking about the ramifications of a 3-board vote and the difficulty of arriving at a definite decision if there were to be any split in that decision, we've decided to postpone this until next week till we can have a 4-vote board available. That was pretty much the universal opinion, and it's one that I support. And I think that at this point, we'll look to meet again and just have this put on the agenda for next week, council. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's it.
All right. So what's left? Oh.
I'll give Roy's back. Okay, we're done. Patience.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is draft minutes of November 15th.
Minutes. Yes, I did look at them and they're nice. So I make a motion to approve the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals minutes for November 15th, 2022.
I second it.
Concur.
Her as well. Thank you. We have one resolution for tonight, and that's HRH Design Group LLC at 172 Cranberry Hole Road, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 152-1-13. Council?
Yes, we have an approval. This was actually all members concurred on this application. Nobody was absent, nobody sustained. This application was to construct a approximately 7,100 square foot residence with 5,014 square feet of patios and decking, a 320 square foot detached gym with outdoor shower, a 648 square foot detached garage, sanitary system, a 1,250 square foot swimming pool, spa, pool fence, pool equipment, gravel driveway gate, and planters. This met all the requirements of the NSRP. This lot, if you remember, was an 8-acre lot. I believe that they were only building on a very small portion of the lot, which the board really supported, as well as they did reduce the application at some point in time as well, which was another support of the board.
You want to make it or do you want me to do it?
In the matter of HRH Design Group LLC, located at 172 Cranberry Hole Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County, tax map number 152-01-13. I move to adopt the decision as written.
I'll second.
I'll concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. And that concludes our meeting for this evening.
Tax map number.
Then I'd like to,
And if I can ask the vice chair to make
I will. I'd like to make a motion to close the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for November 29th, 2022 at 9:03 PM.
Second.
I concur as well. Thank you, everyone.
All right.